The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Greetings, this is Millie Pitts with Ocean Exchange. We welcome you to the next in our series with the Marine Technology Society. Ocean Exchange, you see here, is a 501c. We help advance the adoption of innovative solutions for healthy oceans, sustainable ocean shipping, and resilient coastal systems. We are privately funded. You saw some of our key sponsors on that first slide. We have an in-person event, real life people, October 24th through 26th in Fort Lauderdale. While seats are limited, if you have an interest, please contact me, and my coordinates will be on the very last slide, or you can go to oceanexchange.org and contact us. We have such an important topic today about workforce development. I'm very excited about it. I'm going to turn it over now to Zdenka Willis of the MTS for her introduction, and thank you all.
Great, Millie, thanks. And it's great to be with you again this month, and I agree, we've got a fantastic topic. So very quickly, MTS was established in 1963 on the premise that it's important to foster advances in marine science and technology that benefits humankind and contributes to the sustainability of planet Earth. We have individual corporate and institutional members in 20 countries. MTS connects to our members through professional committees and sections. Our sections include geographic sections and an early career ocean professionals and student sections. We connect through our conferences, and we were excited that we were able to hold an in-person and virtual event, Oceans 2021 San Diego Porto, 2 weeks ago. It was great to see people in 3D, and our next Oceans conference is in February in Chennai. We hope that you can join us personally or virtually and through webinars like this. MTS is a catalyst, and I want to highlight just one of our new programs, the Chartered Marine Technologist Certification Program, and I urge you to go to the MTS website for more information on how you can apply. MTS embraces communications. We advocate for the importance of marine technology. We are a partner organization of the United Nations Ocean Decade, and I draw your attention to our June issue of our MTS journal that focused on the decade and the U.S. ocean shots. This journal is open to all, so you can download your copy at the MTS website. So Dan, I'm looking forward to another great webinar today, so over to you for our topic. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great to have everybody here. Exciting time and a great conversation today. I think you're going to be really excited about it. We've got some great minds doing some great work here. When I wrote the book Nanovation with Kevin and Jackie Freiberg, one of the things that we identified about innovation was that you could look for it at the intersection of trends. And right now we have some massive trends that we're going to be talking about today. First is the urgency of climate change. Every summer it gets worse and scarier, and the things that we're seeing are phenomenal. We need action now. We need to move fast. At the same time, there's the expansion of new technology that's offering us some solutions for things that could help with this. And then finally, there's the expansion of the blue economy. So it's all happening at once. And this is a tremendously important inflection point in the economy of the next few decades. The World Economic Forum last year put out a report called Jobs of Tomorrow, Mapping Opportunity in the New Economy. And in that, interestingly, they identified two really big growth clusters that they see in new jobs coming. One is in the care economy, taking care of children and elderly. It's a big growth area. The other one is the green economy. A lot of people are surprised to know that one of the fastest growing and biggest sectors in Texas, where I live in Austin, in the Texas economy is wind and solar. Huge amounts of jobs. When the oil and gas business went down a few years ago, it was immediately filled up with people coming in to build windmills, solar fields, and all of that. So if you think about it, a couple of months ago, we had we had some people talking about studying the ocean and really spending a lot of time looking at what's in the ocean. Martin Coring from The Economist was with us. And it was a very powerful thing looking at what we called the vast white space on the map, of which we know so little. It's actually a blue space. It is the world's oceans and our other bodies of water. We look at the surface of it, we see it about a mile out to sea, and then the rest of it, to most of us, most of the time, is just invisible. But look at what we've seen just on this webcast over the last year. Floating kelp fields mid-ocean for biogas and sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere. Groups who can have coral that they can plant and restore coral reefs. Just so many things, the carbon sequestering, all of that. All of those things are going to require jobs, and it's going to be extremely lucrative. It's going to be a great economy. It's going to make a lot of difference. There's one more trend that we have to look at, and we've seen that in the last couple of months along the border between the United States and Mexico, people huddling under bridges, trying to get entry into a new economy. We're going to see this south to north migration as all sorts of things happen in Central America, South America, Haiti, places like that. These people need work. These people need an economy. We have to help them. And that's what Dr. Mildred Coyne has been doing a tremendous amount of work on, and Liesl Hodling as well. It's really critical. So Mildred, let me hand over to you. And I think what we're going to do is focus on the actual access of the jobs, how you're helping people get to the jobs and get to work.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dane. It's really great to be here. I have been working in the space of workforce development in the Florida college system for about 30 years now. And I've seen a lot of different trends come and go. And largely one of the things that we find in workforce development is that we're reactionary. We're reacting to a shift from the space shuttle retirement to a commercial space flight. We're reacting to a downturn in people's to the pandemic, the change in work for the pandemic, and what that looks like to our community. And I think this is a real intersection and an opportunity with the blue economy to be more proactive as we build out the opportunity to gain access to these really great jobs. And so when you think about, now you can hit to the next slide. When you think about really what would a workforce development playbook look like for the blue economy, and being able to reverse engineer based on things that we know that we need to build in equity. And Dane, you talked about it when you talked about the south to north migration, but there's also many, many other factors that we've seen in our own communities for generations, where we have left talent in the margins because we haven't provided access to those good jobs due to a lack of training, a lack of access to opportunity. And as we think about the blue economy and how we want to build the workforce and really be intentional about it, we have to start with access to the opportunity, and then that would build out the equity that we all seek to fill now. So as you think about industries such as IT, they're now trying to kind of reverse engine, go backward and say, all right, we need more equity, we need more minorities, we need more females in these fields that offer high demand, high wages, and great opportunities and great career trajectories. But now we're trying to fill in the gaps of those racial equity gaps and those gender gaps. And instead, we can be much more intentional when we think about building out a workforce that is intentional to accessing the talent and the communities that exist all around us, and making sure that we're being very deliberate about that. So equity is designed into the talent supply whenever you start with where are you getting your talent from. And it's through many partnerships and opportunities for minority groups that are focusing on STEM fields now that can be really advantageous, I think, as we build out the blue economy. And then next, in my blue bubble there, you see access to skills and competencies and talent needs. We have to recognize that not all talent needs have not all talent needs to have all competencies and skill sets. And oftentimes we seem to think that in building a workforce supply that we have to have everyone with all these really high credentials. But what you really need to think about is how can we get people started in a field and grow their competence and begin to build capacity through starting with a lower level competency than you might expect. And then that brings us to choosing credentials for the field. And I had a little caution sign there because we have to identify all levels and validations of credentials for any industry sector, but not all job requires the highest degrees. And I think particularly in our STEM fields, we lend ourselves to picking credentials that are very high qualified, PhDs, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. But the caution here is that we have to be very careful not to over-credential, because over-credentialing creates the skills gaps that burdens the sectors as especially as an emerging sector, and that it is incredibly important to consider that the disruption in higher education and other industries that have long experienced skill gaps. And I mentioned the IT field, for example. So case in point, when you think about the disruption that we've seen in higher education and then the skills gap that we have in the IT sector, Google, for example, built out Google University, and it was born out of that skills gap to build an access to talent through short-term industry certifications, not necessarily degrees. I was really excited to see the Marine group filling a tech society building out industry credentials and certifications that people can layer on their demonstrated competency in addition to degrees and other things, but not in exclusion of. And so that's a really important piece, because we often see in different workforce pipelines where there's big gaps because we've over-credentialed the demand, and the talent then doesn't meet the demand of the employer. So then this brings us to building a training plan and a steady supply of talent through that pipeline. And partnerships are a really great way to innovate around that talent pipeline. And how do you build the training model? It's important to consider that specialty certifications that are validated from third parties, nationally recognized third parties, are a really great way to build that talent pipeline and the training plan and talent pipeline. And next, I think we need to consider how to groom employees as they grow, and that can build capacity for companies using work-based learning models such as internships and apprenticeships. I mean, I think that the blue economy has an incredible opportunity to build out innovative apprenticeship models where you can get people with a passion and an interest in our environment and the blue economy to be able to then work alongside master level competency people that have skill base that they can transfer through applied learning to a new level of workforce and really start to grow capacity for the workforce. And then lastly, on this slide, I'll add that it's really incumbent upon industry in any sector to build those career paths so that all of our community can see that they have a place to enter and then a place to grow within. And it's a great retention tool for companies, but it's also a really long-term sustaining plan and capacity growing capability for our communities, for our companies. And if you hit the next slide. So one of the things that we've seen in Broward County is that about 3 years ago, we really intentionally took a hard look at ourselves and looked around our community, and we were experiencing a very robust economy, about a 3.3% unemployment countywide. But when we disaggregated that unemployment, we recognized that there were 6 zip codes with unemployment between 9 and 15%. So how can we be experiencing, so we have companies that were coming to us all the time at Broward College and saying, I can't find employees. And we would literally say to them, but where are you looking? Because we know that there's zip codes where there are people sitting in the margins that we know that have the potential to engage and be a major contributor in any environment. So when you look at those little yellow boxes, you see that those numbers of average of 11.6% unemployment in 6 zip codes represents 18,620 people. And then another 92,000 people in these zip codes that aren't participating in the labor force. They've given up, stopped looking for work. We have to, if we're going to have a revived, a recovered economy, a blue economy, we have to look to the margins and make sure that we're giving people access to the opportunity. And then again, this is another huge opportunity to build an equity for marginalized populations in our community. Next slide, please. One of the next things that what you have to look at, and this is out of Raj Chetty's work through Opportunity Insights, and it's called Recovering the Recovering Economy from the Pandemic. It's looking at employment rates by income quartiles. So we see on this graph that there's the 4.2% of high wage earners are returning back to work, but yet we still have employment rates among workers in the low wage quartiles decreased by 26.3%. And this number keeps dropping even as the economy is rebounding, further amplifying that the pandemic is disproportionately impacting the low wage people. So we have to make sure that we're being deliberate about how we get people access to good jobs. Next slide, please. When we drilled deep into those 6 zip codes that we talked about, we found that even though our community in Broward County had about a 45% education attainment rate, and that's people 25 to 64 holding an associate's degree or higher, in these 6 zip codes, it was only 27% education attainment rate. That means that 73% of these communities, which you saw the numbers of population that represents, have less than an associate's degree. We have an opportunity again to target this talent and bring them up to that next level and level after that in education attainment to compete for good jobs. Next slide, please. When you think about this 73%, you have to compare that to what we know today in the labor market, that 70% of jobs require education beyond high school. So you saw on that previous slide that we can't leave 73% of these zip codes behind, or we'll never get to a full and participating economy, and we'll still continue to have skills gaps. Next slide, please. In Broward Up, what we did when we identified these 6 zip codes is that we took a really hard look at ourselves as a college. We're the only higher public education institution in Broward, and we're one of the largest in the state of Florida. And we had only 10. It's that very first map that you see there that says 2017, 2018. We have 10 brick and mortar locations, and we realized that to be proximate to where these zip codes were, we had to do something different because our 10 locations were not in those zip codes. So we had to, in that very first year, 2018-19, we partnered with agencies and cities and started identifying locations that they could give us for free to push in free workforce development training, industry certifications, and continuing education training to those zip codes so we could start penetrating those zip codes deeper. So then you see by 2019-20, we were in 15 locations. And then by 2021, we're in 26 different locations within those zip codes, fully penetrating the opportunity for post-secondary attainment through those through that work of Broward Up penetration. Next slide, please. So to date, what that's meant is that we've served nearly 3,000 people, and about 2,900 of them have earned an industry certification or a workforce credential. So we know that it's working to get proximate to where people are and finding opportunities, giving them the opportunities to start to build confidence and competence in their post-secondary pursuits. And I believe that this is a very strong and advantageous model for any sector to really look at how they can build that skills gap. Next slide, please. And I know that it's, many of you might have heard that Broward College then has received a Mackenzie Scott gift, which we call the Broward Education Attainment Fund, because we know it's so important to connect people of poverty and communities disenfranchised by traditional economic models to, we've endowed the $30 million gift to continue to be able to deliver free educational workforce training opportunities in those 6 zip codes, and then to be able to expand that to the originally identified 11 zip codes. So we'll be moving from 6 to 11 zip codes, and to have a coordinated enrollment strategy for education attainment. And ultimately, we want to move. Broward County has 31 cities, and in those 6 zip codes that we've been working in, we have 12 cities. So we know we need to move from 12 cities to all 31 in Broward County, and have a strong and intentional enrollment strategies across different areas, like the high school enrollment campaign that we're starting using these funds. We also are building out CE to degree, and what that means for us is continuing education as an access point to post-secondary attainment. Because a lot of the times people just need to be able to dip their toe in the post-secondary water. They've been told myths their whole lives that they're not college material or that they can't do college. And continuing education gives people access to that by helping them build that confidence and competence. And then next, we're building out very intentional in entrepreneurship and small business strategies, because we know that's the real pathway to wealth creation for our communities and employment solutions. We're not going to be just getting people ready for jobs. We're actually going to be placing them in jobs. And that's a new endeavor for a public community college to be in. And so we're excited about that transition that we'll be able to do with that $30 million gift from Mackenzie Scott. And next slide, I might be done. And lastly, this is the last slide. Just last week, we were notified by the Department of Education that this work is being invested in by the U.S. Department of Education, because we received a $30 million, it's $6 million a year for 5 years, Promise Neighborhoods grant. And it's going to be able to allow us to further expand that Broward Up work and be cradle to career, helping our partner agencies that will get sub-awards, 11 of them, that will be focusing on serving early learning and youth all the way through post-secondary, while we'll be able to serve adults. So it's truly a 2-generation model of workforce education and training, career pathing, and getting people into really the great jobs where the economy is vibrant. I think I'm done. Next slide.
Well, Mildred, thank you. That's great. And I love what you're doing. Talk about the intersection of trends with everything that's happening in the workforce right now. Bringing that together, just as there's a trend in the blue economy in Florida to have these jobs appearing, is really wonderful. Stay with us, because we're going to have some questions in a while. And for those of you watching, enter your questions. There's a questions box on the side there, so you can put your questions in there, and we'll get to those in a little while. So, Liesl, we've gone from the need to find jobs for people to this huge blue economy, which is expanding. So talk about what those jobs are going to look like.
Sure, thanks, Dave. And I'm sorry, my first slide, if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, Alice. So we're trying to prepare this workforce for the new blue economy. And next slide. When we talk about the new blue economy, many people are familiar with the blue economy, but we're transitioning into something called the new blue economy. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. So the new blue economy, and I don't intend to read slides to you, but I think it's important to bang on about this for a moment, just to make sure people understand the difference between the blue and the new blue economy. So the new blue economy is this as a knowledge-based economy, looking to the sea, not for extraction of materials. And that's been the way we've looked at the blue economy to this point, is just the sole human extraction from the ocean. But what we're looking to do, to your point of this convergence, is that we're looking to take the data that we're consuming and building out about the oceans and really apply that to address societal challenges and hopefully inspire solutions for the extreme extraction we have done in the past, right? And try to move forward as your points about the environment and the changes that we're seeing in climate change. We also have some very big initiatives that are happening worldwide, which are Seabed 2030, which is looking to map the ocean bottom by 2030, which is a very, very ambitious goal that entities from across the world are pitching in to try to make happen. And we also have, it is now officially the UN Ocean Decade. So that will be the next 10 years of the world focused on all these issues that we're speaking of today. But to the point, what you asked is building up this workforce. It's also by this 2030 is kind of a looming mark for so many components of what I'll talk about in the next few minutes. It's estimated by 2030 that ocean-focused industries will employ 40 million full-time people. And the majority of these jobs will require technology-focused abilities and data literacy skills. So I think we'll probably see where I'm going on this one. However, the US education system by the year 2030, the way we're going right now, less than 50% of our students will be prepared for these jobs with the basic technology abilities and data literacy skills. So to adequately prepare this workforce that is possessing these required skills, we do need to see some changes in the primary and education experiences. And starting at the K-12 level, many classrooms are in desperate need for technological enhancements, and they also need data-rich, technology-based STEM activities to instill these 21st century workforce skills. To Mildred's point, we are not going to produce this incredibly well-rounded student that can take everything that comes at them. What we want to do is instill them with some basic skills, but then also that teamwork component, how to work with others, how to learn from others, and how to bring those skills together to bring a strong team to solve problems. We also need dramatic improvements in school and at home for accessibility to and connectivity to the internet. And the pandemic put a very strong spotlight on this issue. It has been looming for a long time, but people didn't really talk about it because it wasn't until this urgency that it was put into the forefront. A Pew Research study conducted in April 2020, so at the high point of all this, found that 36% of low-income parents reported that their students were unable to complete their schoolwork because they didn't have a solid internet connection or internet connectivity whatsoever at their home. That's compared to 14% of middle-income parents and 4% of upper-income parents. Digital divide widened because now you're superimposing the socioeconomic gap on this as well. And interestingly enough, the same Pew survey explored attitudes about the role of government in addressing these issues. Results revealed that 62% of people that responded to this survey do not think that it is the federal government's responsibility to ensure high-speed internet connections to homes. And when asked about school obligation, 80% think that schools have an obligation to provide connectivity to students. So obviously that's a mismatch if people don't think that it's the government's responsibility, but somehow think the schools are supposed to do this because schools get the money from the government, right? So there's a really interesting blend here of attitude and understanding of how this money flows and how people are getting connected or not connected, because we tend to just look upon the world in the settings that we have in our own homes. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. I'm sorry, that was the broken connection one. Sorry, next slide. And then at the college level, much to which Mildred was talking about, this talent in the margins, and we need flexibility, right, to attain these college degrees. So we need a lot more on-ramps and off-ramps for people to be able to access education. So I want to take a second and ask you, everybody that's participating in this, picture an undergraduate student in your head. Just snap decision, picture an undergraduate. Let me just read some statistics about undergraduate students. So the majority of undergraduate students are employed full-time while attaining their degree. They're 25 years or older, and they are, excuse me, they're attending college part-time, if only one class a semester. So it takes a long time to achieve that. And less than 20% of undergraduates actually live on campus. That is most likely not the person you conjured when you were thinking about an undergraduate. I know I lived the undergraduate experience where I went away to college, did the whole thing. That's not the majority of people. And so the point of all of this is that no two people take the same exact pathway, and we must change these on-ramps and off-ramps to be much more inclusive and to create more diversity in our college population and our workforce. And these changes are needed to provide students with more opportunities to gain these skills that they need in these flexible learning environments through micro-credentialing, through internships, apprenticeships, proper recognition of military experience, increased flexibility with credit transfer. I mean, the list goes on and on what we could be doing to broaden this aperture to bring more people to the table. Slide 5, please. And then to dive into some specificity about the blue economy and specifically the new blue economy, I want to focus on one sector of the blue economy, which is shipping, and pull out one example. So in 2017, the Columbia River saw over 1,500 ships, which must pass under 5 bridges into a 42-foot deep shipping channel to reach its port. And it has all sorts of considerations such as underhull clearance, air gap, meaning getting underneath the bridge, the amount of the space underneath the bridge. And to solve this, the new blue economy spin on this would be a reliable and predictive model, which are bringing all these environmental factors of tides, currents, wind, speed, waves, salinity, etc., coupled with a specific vessel loadout model. So when it comes into port, when it gets loaded and unloaded, and that would be a huge, enormous value to the shipping community and could be replicated to other ports as well and other ships. So that's just an example of how you take traditional shipping and then twist it under this new blue economy. And if you could go to the next slide, I'm going to dazzle you with lots of words on one slide. This enhanced shipping example highlights the need for a spectrum of the background content, this really large spectrum. So we have jobs, if you could go to the next, I don't know, it's not coming up on mine. There we go. Yeah, lots of words dazzle you with words you can't read. Okay, so it's just to the point that there's lots of jobs ranging from all sorts of areas, from high school education to PhD, pulling from various subjects such as scientists, engineers, data modelers, UX designers, sensor developers, technicians, transportation logistics, ships captains, on and on and on. All these people are needed to bring this example of the new blue economy to fruition. So there's lots of different jobs from lots of different areas all converging onto this new blue economy. So the opportunities abound, and there are challenges that we need to actively implement solutions to if we're going to enable the workforce to support a strong future ocean-based economy. Thank you.
That's great. We've got some questions. And again, put your questions in the questions box. If we get any really, really technical questions, we will wait after the thing, we'll stay on. And if you want to stay on, we can answer some of those then. But the first question we've got, Mildred, is for you, but I think both of you could answer it. What do you suggest that job applicants reveal in addition to their academic credentials and work experience?
Well, I think one of the things that we see across all sectors is people need to make sure that they're communicating their value to the organization. And so it's thinking about your resume a little bit differently, thinking about what you've done that's added value to the previous work that you've done, to the organization that you've been a part of, how you see your contributions making a significant difference. Another area that I think is really important is those what we call workplace competencies, often referred to as soft skills. That's when all employers across any sector have been pulled and they are asked about their skills gap. And Manpower Group has done a lot of surveys on this, and employers come back and say, yes, we need hard technical skills. We need people to have competencies in very specific technical areas, but more importantly, we need them to have the right attitude, the right professionalism, the ability to work in teams, the ability to think critically. One of the areas that we focus on at the college, and we're seeing this happen more and more across higher education, I briefly touched on it, is entrepreneurial thinking. We're delivering entrepreneurship training for people that have an idea, but that want to start a business, but it's not only for people that want to start a business. It's about knowing how to look around the corner, think beyond what is right in front of you, strategize, do discovery, understand what impacts can be made, the cause and effect of different things within your sector, so that you can help your current employer to launch new products or new services as an intrapreneur. And so those competencies that you may have that when you just put down your degree or your educational experience, you're not capitalizing on, I think, are missed opportunities.
Liesl, you want to jump in on that one?
Oh, ditto. I mean, that was really well explained, and absolutely, it's those experiences, the job and life experiences that can be added to this, because it may seem trivial, but if you are a garage tinkerer mechanic, but that doesn't necessarily reflect in your degree path, those are huge skills that could be applied to the job that often get lost in the mix. So just an example.
Yeah.
And I'll actually reverse that too, because you brought it up. So the reverse is true too. So maybe you need to build a more robust resume, but maybe you also need to go back and get some additional skills and training. You can leverage those experiences that you've had in employment towards credit. I mean, Lisa, you mentioned it from military experience, but that's one path that you can accelerate your degree by using your work experience or using any industry certification that you have. We have many different ways that we can advance someone into their degree path program by giving them accelerated credit. And it's really an underused tool. It's really unfortunate because it's a fast path to earning a credential by leveraging your previous work experience. I have one example of a company, a medical services company, that really wanted to push the message to their employees that degrees matter, because they had hired a lot of people. They had a vice president that had been there for 20 years that didn't have a degree, and the CEO was trying to help her be his poster child, if you will, for getting your degree. She came to us kicking and screaming. She did not want to go back to school. We worked with her and we got her 21 credits for her work experience that escalated her into that degree. She got an associate's degree and then a bachelor's degree. She truly is the poster child for how to rapidly earn a credential. And she was a grandmother of 4. She never wanted to go back to school, and she got that degree because we accelerated her with her experience.
I have a question, and some people have asked about this. You talk about equity and opportunity. So a lot of the focus of the talk today is about how to bring people out of poverty, out of loss of opportunity, and up. So my question is how fast is the new blue economy growing? And how much more people a couple of people have commented in the questions about the possibility of people transferring from other industries. So these would be people with work experience, education, transferring in from the car business into marine technology. Can you talk about that a little bit, Lisa?
Absolutely. So I think there's two components of that, and the elevation and the connectivity. And sorry, I'll bang on this again because this has been a passion of where I've worked for 25 years, is that internet connectivity piece of this, and that is just becoming so important by the day, and again exploited by the issues of homeschool or home learning during the pandemic. And this is really problematic because we have people across the socioeconomic spectrum that do not have connectivity because they, number one, can't afford it. But then we also, because I'll speak for myself, I live on the East Coast, we're a highly wired area. There's plenty of areas in this country that you cannot get a connection, or you're on relays or whatnot to be able to get that connection. We use our devices. This is an appendage now, right? And if we can't get connectivity in multitude of ways, people are being left behind constantly. So that is a major issue. And if they're not being connected at an early age, they will be left behind. So that's part of it. The second part is the new blue economy, where we are having this convergence of all different sectors come together. I would say, yes, absolutely, this will happen, but this honestly has been happening for a while. I've for years given presentations about becoming part of the marine space, and I was giving a talk at one school to mechanical engineering students, and none of them had any idea that their skills could translate into the ocean space. None of them, because all the professors, and I don't mean to be pedantic, were kind of making mini-me's. It was what they did in their research instead of widening the aperture of how these mechanical engineering skills could be applied across. So I think the onus kind of goes both ways on the student to be looking for opportunities, but then we need to be reflective as educators to really say, you know, the sky's the limit, kids. Dude, this can be applied in so many different ways, and hopefully the new blue economy will just the concept of it will really pique people's interest to want to apply their skills. Sorry, I prattled on there, but
No, that's great. On the question of mid-career people, you know, so people who are in their 30s or 40s and already have a good career, transitioning them over, how are they finding the opportunities and how are they finding the transition?
Honestly, it's just like any other transition, right? In your mid-30s, when you find that you realize, oh, this is what I want to do when I grow up. There's always a little bit of stumbling there because you need to align yourself. It's some speed bumps, changing lanes, right? But there are so many opportunities. Like I said, by 2030, there'll be 40 million full-time jobs within this sector. That's a lot of jobs. And we are doors are wide open to bring people in because we're recognizing the need for the computer side, the programming, the AI is really becoming part of all this. Blockchain, all of these are being incorporated in, so the doors are wide open for people who do want to make that switch. And you don't need to have, you don't need to go back for a degree in oceanography to make that switch. Right? You're bringing your own skill set, your own suitcase with you.
But if I can add, I'm sorry, Dane.
No, go ahead.
So when you talk about, though, you know, people getting access, or even whether they're a mid-career changer to the blue economy, or if we're trying to help, you know, the mechanical engineering student understand all the opportunities, we have to recognize, though, that people that aren't consumers of an industry or a sector often will never ever know what it can be. You know, our young people are growing up with the concept, or have grown up with the construct of teacher, lawyer, doctor, nurse. Those are the professions and occupations that they know. Those are the professions, and engineer, I should add, in engineering, that we have long since held in our society as this is what success is measured by, these occupations in our community. And we know what those occupations are. We know the training path for them. We don't know the training path or even the opportunity within the blue economy, as we're not pushing that into our educational systems as a career exploration and development opportunity. And then when you think about minority communities or low income communities, they're not coastal, they're not necessarily on the water, they're not understanding and experiencing that there's an entire blue economy that they could explore career opportunities in. I mean, we aren't even really being clear and helping those communities understand what mechanical engineering is, let alone connecting it to the blue economy. So we have to be realistic and understand that as a group, if we as a society want the blue economy to thrive and grow, we're going to have to figure out a PR message and a strategy around career exploration and development for what the opportunities are and how they exist and how they can be materialized for all people that may not otherwise know that they have any connectivity to them. I loved your slide, Lisa, with all the words, because it showed that across different you can have an interest in a different sector and still align to the blue economy. And that's so true in the marine sector in general. And so, but it's really also makes it very complicated to convey career exploration information, because if I'm in the marine industry and I'm looking for a mechanic, I can't just look, or I'm looking to build a marine mechanic program at the college level. I can't just look into our labor market data and search on marine mechanics, because it's going to come up. I have to search for HVAC, I have to search for plumbing, electrical, carpentry. I have to search across all those different sectors. There is no marine sector in our labor market data.
Correct.
And that's a real challenge when you think about an emerging economy like the blue economy. It'll be the same for the green economy. It'll be a little easier for the care economy that you mentioned, Dane, because we know how sciences is much more combined, but that makes it really challenging. And as a society, and our Department of Labor has to start thinking about that. It's time for a new jobs architecture. We can't just keep existing in this same platform, because it's not serving the needs of being able to convey the opportunity to our young people or our adults transitioning.
You hit the nail on the head with that one, Mildred, and that's a battle that many organizations have been fighting over the past few years, is trying to get the code on the books, because with the marine space, it's just not reflected. And so that does not percolate down into job preparation programs or lists, or honestly, with the transition program, the military, the TAP program, where they transition from military into this. Those codes aren't there. So we're losing so many people that have spent many years being prepared in the marine space, going to other jobs, and that knowledge is being lost.
That's great. Thank Mildred and Liesl. Thank you so much. We had a lot of questions, but you were covering them on the fly. I didn't even get a chance to read hardly any of them. So it was really great. Millie, over to you.
Well, I can't echo what they said enough. We offer free money, non-dilutive money to innovators. And I can tell stories where we've talked to very sophisticated innovators at places like Argonne National Labs, who have an innovation that could be applied to the marine sector. And I've had to fight with them to come into our process, because they have never considered that their solution could be applied to maritime. And everything you said about educating about that, drawing them in, I'm not smart enough to know how to do that, and I'll leave that to these smart folks and others. Thank you so much. I think we could have gone on another hour, and we're limited to an hour, but this is great. Thank you, Dane. Dane does this pro bono for us. He's a great friend of Ocean Exchange. He is the moderator of our live in-person event. Yes, real people in a room together. And you see how smooth he is. He's just that smooth on stage. Thanks, Dane. Next slide.
Thank you.
We'll have more of these. Normally the first Wednesday of each month. Mark down November the 3rd. We'll be publicizing the topic for the November webcast very soon. Save the date for Ocean Exchange in Fort Lauderdale. I mentioned that seats are limited, but we do have some. If you have an interest, I want to talk to you. You see some coordinates for Ocean Exchange and MTS Society there. Next slide. Again, this is a collaboration between Ocean Exchange. You see some of our key sponsors and the Marine Technology Society. Send us your feedback or topics that you'd like to hear about. Next slide. And here we go. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks, Dane. We have 3 great folks behind the scenes: Alice, Monica, Christina. We couldn't do it without you. We had several questions in there. If this is recorded, it is. And we have a webcast library. I know the MTS pushes links out as well. So connect with either MTS or Ocean Exchange if you want to see the recordings, and share them with your friends, because this is great information. Thank you all very, very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.